Love, light, and blessings. This is Shamanic Alec Priestess here today. My hair is crazy because it is crazy hot and crazy humid. We're having a major heat wave here in Pennsylvania. So, like, my hair is a hot mess. And I have, like, no sleeves on today. I don't even care. Like, I know you shouldn't wear sleeveless stuff, blah, 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 if you have big shoulders and stuff. But I don't care. It's hot, so I've been wearing shorts, too. I don't care. But anyways, that's not what the video is about. I wanted to make, I kind of touched on this subject before when I made a video called Orishas Aren't Goddess and Gods. Please respect our religion. And I kind of explained why there's like this trend of calling the Orishas and the Loas God and Goddesses, which they really aren't. A lot of African traditional religions actually come from Ifa, like Lucimi does, Santeria, Candomblé, and so on and so forth. And they're really not God and goddesses because in African traditional religions, there's only one God. There's not a multiple gods. So Orishas are just that, Orishas. Loas are Loas. Loas are ancestors. Orishas are ancestors. Some of them always existed and some of them were believed to be actually living. To me, they were living, but I'm just saying, So just wanted to put that there. I also want to put another disclaimer. My opinions are mine, and I do not speak for my entire race of people. For those that have never watched my videos, I am of African and Native American descent. I am from the Arawak tribe of the Caribbean. So I'm going to speak on my experience. I'm not speaking for my whole tribe. I'm not speaking for all people that are of African descent as well. I'm speaking for me. So I've seen a lot of videos done about the topic of culture appropriation, but I've never seen a video done on culture appreciation. There is a great difference between culture appropriation and cultural appreciation. I have been dreading making this video, but what inspired me was two YouTubers. I'm not going to link their videos because I didn't really ask their permission, but I'm just going to explain why this kind of inspired me to really get deep into this topic. With the first person's video, this person was very angry about cultural appropriation, and the main idea was it's not okay to take the shiny pieces or the bits and bobs, like whatever suits you, but then disregard the other stuff without ever giving acknowledgement of where you got that from and things like that. And I'm going to be honest, I agreed with his video. I did. I even commented on this person's video. I think I was like the only person who did, because I agree with it. In a lot of ways, I agreed with the person's message, and I feel like a lot of people got offended by this video. I recently saw another video, and I feel like this person was upset, which the person usually is never like that on their channel, because of, I guess, a video that she had watched or whatever, and she was giving her perspective of about the topic of culture appreciation, and I agree with some things and I kind of disagreed with other things, which I feel like as human beings that's what we do. Like, you're not always going to agree with everybody's take on something or everybody's opinion on something. I'm one of those people, like, I'll watch anybody's videos whether I actually agree with everything they say or not. I'm still going to give you that space. I'm going to respect you and I'm going to listen. And I saw a lot of people really liked her video and really agreed with the video, and things like that. So now I'm going to give my take on this. And before I start, I'm going to give the definition of cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation, as defined by the dictionary, is an adoption of elements of a minority culture by members of a dominant culture. It is distinguished from an equal cultural exchange. So it is different than somebody who's culturally exchanging things. Okay, so cultural appropriation is when you take from a minority culture, but in a way that is not an even exchange. You're just taking without giving anything back. Okay, without giving anything back. So because there's a difference in the power, so due to imbalance of power, often as a byproduct of colonization and oppression. That is the perspective I'm going to speak on this video. And if anybody's offended by my video, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. But at the end of the day, I feel like everybody needs to listen to all sides of this discussion so that we could come together and have a dialogue. I believe in I feel like that's what's happening in America right now. We are in a very divide by political party, and this person voted for this person and this person didn't. And I've seen people that have been friends all their lives actually be divided in families and friends because of politics, you know? And I feel like there's politics in the spiritual community, to be honest. And I just want to give my opinion. And again, if I offend you, I'm sorry, but I gotta speak my truth. Just like I've listened to other people's truth, I want to speak my truth. Okay, and this is going to be my raw, actual, the way I see things. Okay, so so getting back to culture appropriation. Now, as I said, I come from an indigenous tradition. So growing up, I was always told that I was a Taino Indian, that I was from Arawak descent. I have a great grandmother who used to dance, which I didn't know then it was spiritual dancing. I was just dancing with her and things like that. So I grew up very proud of my Taino heritage. There's certain baths that have been passed down in my family and things like that. My thing is, people are going to do whatever the hell they want to do. Whether I make a video and say this is what your practice is offending me, there's just going to be people that do it anyways. They don't care. So I'm not going to police people and be like, yes, your altar is incorrect. You need to bring that back to the store. How dare you? I'm not going to do that, because at the end of the day, people are going to do whatever they want. I've seen this debate with braiding, which is an African, certain kind of braids are from Africa. And then you'll have somebody of a different culture do the same style and rename the braids, for instance, the bow braids, and make a whole bunch of money and charge crazy amount of money on something that comes from a different culture without giving it credit. That's when I have a problem. Like I said, I may not agree with people taking things from other practices, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and police you, because you are in charge of your own convictions. You know what's right and wrong, and it is what it is. You're going to do what you want to do. But when people outright go and make money out of it, I don't see anything wrong with charging for spiritual services. That's not what I'm saying. But for instance, I'm a shaman. I'm initiated as a shaman. It has taken me 13 years, 12 years of study, straight study, dedication, and everything. And then about a year ago, I got initiated. I don't mind somebody calling themselves a shamanic practitioner, shamanic journey, because shamanism isn't only Native American. There's African shamans, and yes, there are European shamans, by the way. So that's not my problem. You know what I mean? My problem is when somebody calls themselves a shaman and doesn't even know what the word means. Or I'm a shaman in Native American spirituality. Native Americans are made up of many different tribes. You could think of it as even races if you want. Every tribe has their own spiritual practice, their own culture, and their own language. So to lump up, I practice Native American spirituality, I don't tell people that. I always say I'm Taino, I'm Arawak. My practices are from my Caribbean culture and things that I've learned. Is different than, let's say, my daughter's boyfriend who's Navajo. Our practices there's some similarities, but there's differences. Tribes have their own colors, their own cultures, their own attires, their own language, their own way they do music, the chanting, deities, all that kind of stuff. Now, my daughter's boyfriend is very closed off on his spiritual practices. He preserves that for himself, and that's what I do. So in the same way that I'm not going to go to your house and yell at you and scream at you and curse at you if you have a deity out of your tradition, because again, that's between you and the spirits. That is whatever. People are going to do what they want to do. That's just the way it is, right? So do what you're going to do. My issue is, when I made this channel, like, there was things I was comfortable sharing and there were things that I was not comfortable sharing. I had to delete comments because I have people saying, how dare you share this and this and that, but I'm not sharing anything that I was sworn to secrets to, because I'm initiated in 2 African traditional religions. Okay. I'm not going to share the secrets that I was sworn to secrecy. Right now, I have a mentor that's guiding me in voodoo. I have a lineage because my grandfather is Haitian. My mother is Haitian and Puerto Rican. Like, that's not a race, and I know that, but she grew up culturally Puerto Rican and Haitian. Her race is African and Native American, like me, but mostly African. I'm not going to sit here and, again, like I said, tell you what to do in your own practice. My issue is when people give themselves titles that, if you're following a tradition, so in other words, if you're going to call yourself a palero, get initiated. Pay for the teacher, make an exchange, whatever the case may be. Get yourself some godparents. Learn about the culture, if that's really calling to you, if a deity is calling you outside of your culture, your race, if that's really, then that spirit's going to bring you a teacher of that culture, a teacher who has dedicated their life to this practice, and teach you the appropriate way to traditionally serve that spirit. Because in my opinion, in my path, and in my practice, they're not deities to me. They're not archetypes. They're not ideas. They're not pictures. These spirits are my ancestors. These spirits are my bloodline. These spirits are spirits that I inherited over hundreds and hundreds of years. And so these are people to me. So in other words, if I'm going to serve, because we don't work with the spirits, we serve the spirits with an African spirit, then I'm going to learn everything I can about that tribe. For instance, if I'm going to practice Ifa or Santeria, I'm going to learn, even if it's not my first language, like, I'm trying to learn how to say some Yoruba words. So when I pray to you, I'm saying, it's kind of like a person, when somebody comes from a different country and you're like, I'm really called to be this person's friend. I feel like they came into my life for a reason, right? I'm going to try to learn more about this person's culture, because that's a sign of respect. What do they traditionally eat in that region of the country? What language do they speak? What kind of music do they like? Does that make sense? So that to me is not a culture appropriation, if that's really your calling and you're going to a teacher of that culture who's teaching you, because guess what? That's appreciating a culture in a respectful way. Culture appreciation is elements of a culture that I use while honoring the source they come from. It is important to note that appreciation involves respect and value. It is okay to find things beautiful. It is okay to be called outside your culture. It is not okay to be called to say you're called outside of culture, but then you're going to do it however you want to do it. And you're not respecting somebody of that culture, saying, well, sis, I'm glad that you called to that culture, but you're not really supposed to do this, like this, and like that. Because remember, Santeria, Ifa, traditional religions, that Yebaya, for example, was an example given. She comes from a tradition and a religion. So there's a certain way that you're supposed to serve her. If that person learns that way to serve her, because this has been done, it's an old religion. Some of these religions predate Christianity. So if there's a way to honor her in that way, then you should do that. Like, I've been called, like you can see, I have a chakra banner. I myself have been guilty of cultural appropriation without knowing it. I have. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, the style was to wear like Asian print clothing and stuff. I'm not Asian. So I was doing it without intentionally knowing what it was. You know what I mean? Even when I was buying stuff with chakras in it, I'm not Indian. But I really felt called to really learn how to balance chakras and work with chakras and color therapy. And so when I worked full-time on a psychic site, I made an even exchange, a monetary exchange, with someone who practiced Hinduism, who still does. And she took me under her wing and taught me what the chakras really were, how do they work with them, what are the mantras, and things like that in Sanskrit. So yes, I was working with a culture that was outside my culture, but out of respect, I went to somebody of that culture to teach me. And that's where I see cultural appropriation. When you have authors writing books on practices that they never were really trained in, because I've seen books where, like, I grew up in Santeria. I have my friend who's bringing me back home with learning true voodoo, and she's Haitian, and she's very proud and very closed off. And like, I don't even talk about it on my channel too much, because she's like, I'm comfortable with you saying these things, but not comfortable with that. I have to respect that, because guess what? Even though I have Haitian descent, I didn't always grow up in that culture. So if she's bringing me into that culture, I have to respect her for it. You know what I mean? That's an even exchange, right? So with the lady that taught me about Hinduism and chakras, she was okay with me sharing it. That's why I do provide a service like that in my shop. But however, I do invest in things in India. I do give back to India, because I recognize and understand that chakras are Hindu in India. That is part of their path, and I have to give that respect. So I do appreciate other people's cultures. I do that. I studied Wicca. That's outside of my culture for a year and a day. I don't practice that anymore, but I felt uncomfortable doing it at times, because I was like, oh, I'm not really like a white person, so I can't be doing this, and that kind of stuff. And then, but then I always gave credit. Like, I know that such and such goddess comes from this country. So you know what I did when I had a goddess call to me? She has since left, but when I had that goddess call to me, I tried to study as much as I could about the country she came from, the religious practice she came from, and every offering that I made was of her country. Like, she is of Irish descent, so I would make her a Irish dish. I would have pictures of Ireland. Like, you get what I'm saying? I would have songs that I knew she liked from her country. Maybe I'll play that in the background, and I will pray to her certain prayer, like that kind of stuff. In Santeria and in Voodoo, there are certain protocols that a person must do in order to serve that spirit appropriately. You know what I mean? So do your research. If that really calls to you, do your research. I find that a lot of people get more offended when people start putting them as goddesses when they're not goddesses, because like I said, they're not goddesses. An Orisha is an Orisha. A Loa is a Loa. I think people get offended when people don't want to recognize where these religions came from. Again, I'm speaking from my perspective. I come from two races of people that have been oppressed and continue to be oppressed. The African diaspora struggle still goes on. Yes, I'm not a slave right now, but there is a unbalance of power. I do have fears because of my skin color, being followed in a store. I have been a victim of being called the N-word by people. The other day I was shopping with my daughter, and I was shopping, and someone in Walmart yelled out to me and my daughter, "Andale, andale, arriba! Go back to the border." Like, I have a neighbor downstairs, which I dealt with that situation, but I have a neighbor that literally, because he was mad, instead of saying, "Hey, keep the noise down," because I had family visiting, my ex, my youngest daughter's father, visiting from out of town, he thought it was okay to yell out the window the N-word and call my youngest daughter half-breed and just say all this racial stuff. And her father had to go. And long story short, he thought it was okay because we were arguing. I'm not going to sit here and say I was like praying for him and being peaceful. I was defending myself. I was angry and I was yelling at him back. I was defending myself. He thinks it was okay to try to attack us with a metal bat. Had my daughter's father been there, who knows what would have happened. So this is the kind of thing that I'm living in, because like certain people feel like they could say whatever they want now. And so my practice and my spirituality is what keeps me going. Like that's what kept my ancestors going when they were enslaved. I have a pet peeve when it comes to hoodoo as well. Like before I made a channel, I was trying to find information on hoodoo. Most authors of hoodoo are actually of European descent. Most people posting stuff on hoodoo are of European descent. And I was like, I thought that was an African American practice. I made a video about what is hoodoo, and as I started reading older books, I found out that the people who created the religion were actually thrown out of the spiritual practice. Like the hoodoo churches, they were sharing stuff, and then the Europeans took it over and pushed the original creators out of their own practice and made money off of it. That is true definition of culture appropriation, is the displacement of the original people who made that spiritual practice. That happened with the Tainos and the Arawaks. We got colonized. You know, it's written in history books that we don't exist. And now thank God to ancestry and things like that. The ones that say, no, I am Native American and this is, you know, I'm native to the Caribbean and we're like the true people that first came here. They have ancestry and they have tests like that that are proving there's a lot of Native American DNA still in the Caribbean. So a race of people cannot be extinct. They could be mixed because of colonization, but they cannot be extinct if that genetic DNA still exists in their blood. So, and what they did in my country was and a lot of Caribbean, they took the Tainos, the Arawaks, the Caribes off their lands, mixed us down, enslaved us, and then when we started dying out, and a lot of us escaped to South America, you could still see that DNA in South America. So again, Tainos are not extinct. That's a lie. But they don't want to give us our lands back because that's money. That's cultural appropriation, monetary gain for the displacement and the breaking away of somebody's culture for money because you think you're empowered. And that happens in spirituality. I was reading that, yes, sage is great, but I tried to buy sustainable sage, and I also use culinary sage because there are actual tribes that have been moved out of their sacred lands because there's such a demand for sage that the very people who are known for smudging are actually being displaced off their land. That's cultural appropriation. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Appreciating somebody's culture, like somebody gave an example, their mother grew up in Brazil, she was immersed in the culture, the spirits called to her, they allowed her to take part in rituals and be initiated. That's culture appreciation. Why? Because that person did the steps they needed to do to get to that level. That's a different thing. I've seen people of different races being called to Wicca that are not necessarily European. I don't see a problem with that if they want to study Wicca, if they want to take the time to do that. You know what I mean? I've seen people of different races say, you know, I'm part of a coven. I practice Alexandria. I practice Hellenic. If that's your calling, then hey, if you're willing to do the research, if those spirits are really calling you, that's great. But now, are certain deities or certain spirits, do they care about your race? Some of them do. And that's why I feel like it's important to study these spirits, because there are spirits in certain ATR religions that don't work with certain people because of the history. Because again, some of the spirits were believed to be alive. Some of these spirits, some of these ancestors were taken away from their homeland, whipped. How do you think that person, that spirit, that ancestor is going to feel if someone outside their race is not honoring them properly, or didn't take the time to learn the language or the culture, or give them food or offerings in their culture? They're going to be like, because remember, they went through something. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just feel like we need to be more sensitive. If you're working with a tradition that's outside your culture, sensitivity is key. I've seen people on YouTube be like, yes, I am a santera. And then I'll add like, oh, okay, well, you know, when they're training you, you're supposed to do A, B, or C, right? That's like basic 101, Santeria 101. No, that's just on Hollywood and yelling at somebody. Like I seen somebody do that and yelling at anybody of African descent, and we're like, but that's our culture. You're really not initiated. We could tell you're lying. So you're lying about being initiated. You're lying because like anybody that's just getting into the path would know certain basic things, or even somebody who grew up in the culture. Because there's people that grow up in the culture that don't get initiated, and that's okay too because that's your culture. But you know, and then this woman has like 10 billion thousand subscribers and she's lying because she's not initiated. She didn't grow up in the culture. She doesn't like black people. That's when I have an issue. And I've seen that. And then you'll have somebody who's actually of that culture, and for some reason people are not as interested in watching someone from India share something, or someone of African descent share something. Oh, they don't have as much viewers or subscribers. But then somebody outside the culture, yep, they got the whole world subscribing to the channel. And it's like, okay, it's kind of like sometimes people don't respect the original creators or the original people that a path came from. That's when I have an issue. It's like saying someone of an indigenous native to America, Native American, creates a channel from a certain tribe, and then like nobody wants to watch you, but then somebody who you know doesn't even have that DNA makes videos and is not even saying the truth. Oh, I'm gonna buy all their stuff. I'm gonna, and that's messed up because like there'll be people all day saying, yeah, voodoo speaks to me. Da, da, da. What do you do for Haiti? What have you done for Haitians? You know what I mean? Or I've seen people like, yeah, I practice Santeria, I practice this and that, but they're not African spirits. Yes, they are. Recognize that these spirits are African. Recognize that these spirits are from a certain tribe. Take the time to know what are their correspondences, what kind of offerings would they like, what kind of rituals can I do that closely ties them to the country of their origin. Who can I speak to that I trust, that knows these things, that is willing to take me under their wing, and either I pay for their time or whatever the agreement is. If that's really your calling, I always feel like if a spirit truly calls you, they're going to open up the path for you to serve them for the highest good. My interpretation of cultural appropriation is when people use things as decorative. I'm going to have this deity today, this deity tomorrow, this deity tomorrow, this deity tomorrow. I could do that because I'm a collect. I can do whatever I want. That's disrespectful. And then if somebody tries to tell you like, I'm offended by that, I want to hear your mouth. That's offensive, right? So I think that in this community, we need to keep having these conversations. I feel that we need to keep making space for other people. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and throw sticks and stones at anybody. I myself have been guilty of cultural appropriation. But you know what I did? I fixed my ways. I went to somebody of that culture. I went under their mentorship. And now I can say I appreciate their culture. I'm learning of their culture. I feel drawn to this, so I'm going to do what it takes to get the knowledge. If you can actually buy books from the person that's of their culture, like I like hoodoo, let me try to see if I can find a really good root doctor of African American descent, where the religion came from, so I could actually learn. Or I'm interested in Ifa and Santeria. I'm going to find a book that actually is written by somebody who's initiated, who's of that culture. You know what I mean? That's what we need to do. I want to also say something because I'm making 2 more videos about this. There's a lot of infighting in the community too. The people of the Caribbean is where Santeria originated from, but the religion itself is Ifa, and it broke into other things. We have to recognize that even if we live in the Caribbean, no matter what color our skin is, those are African deities. And we can't whitewash them. And we shouldn't fight with each other about who has the right more to do that, because at the end of the day, Santeria originated in places like Cuba by the black population, by the African slaves. Now, as time went on and people got mixed and stuff, it doesn't mean that somebody who may be a little bit lighter than you, because they have a lineage. A lot of these religions are lineages. This person passes down from this person to this person to this person. The reason why I don't share a lot of spells and rituals on my channel is because I want to preserve my culture. And I don't want to share my rituals with other people. It's different if someone is a client of mine and we made an even exchange and the spirits call me to help this person. They can participate in a healing ceremony with me. But the things that we do, the rites and the things we do, they're a secret. I'm not going to photograph them. I'm not going to record them. You have never seen my real working altars. Why? Because the one time I tried to record in my spiritual room, my camera and my laptop blanked out. In a lot of our traditional religions, Africa, in my experience, don't really like to be on video and don't want people to really see their rituals a lot of the times. People have the right to preserve their culture. And even if somebody acts as nicely, we don't have to share with you. There are those that are comfortable, and that's great. And then there's those like me that there are certain people I will mentor that I feel like they really do have a calling, and I don't mind teaching them certain things and helping them to get initiated if that's what they're interested in at a later date or something like that, and help them on their path, you know. But there are other people that I've been like, I don't feel comfortable with this. I'm sorry. I may not be the teacher for you. But when it comes to like my family's recipes for baths, certain rituals and spells that my mom has passed down to me, one, she swore me to secrecy. And two, I don't feel comfortable sharing something so intimate because that's part of my culture. And I feel like by keeping it a secret, it preserves my culture. So maybe another way to avoid culture appropriation is maybe not being so open with our stuff. I'm sorry if that offends you, but like, then maybe don't share it with the world. Like, that's what I don't. That just avoids me getting upset if I see somebody stealing something on another video. So for other words, if I'm making a spell to, I don't know, I'm going to make up a goon or something. I'm doing a ritual for a goon. If I'm videotaping my ritual, somebody's going to copy that. So to avoid that, I'm just not going to videotape my ritual to a goon. I'm not going to videotape the prayers that I do. I'm not going to share that in a video. You know what I mean? That just avoids the whole thing. So I like to preserve my culture because I'm aware of what my ancestors went through in order to keep the religion alive. But at the same time, if somebody's outside my race and they're like, I'm initiated and did all the steps they had to do to get to that certain level, I'm not going to sit here and not be your friend. I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, you can't be doing that. Because at the end of the day, you do you, I do me, and that's about it. So, but I love listening to all the opinions of other people. Hopefully I got my point across. It really bothers me more when you try to tell somebody of that culture how to do things. It really bothers me more when you start changing things, like for other words, or you could do hoodoo without doing reading psalms or working with saints or doing this and that, or I do voodoo, but like you know, I don't work with the law, I work with the Morgan. You can't do voodoo if you work with the Morgan. That makes no sense, you know. Or you have a law next to like a Greek deity. Like, they don't like that. Like, read about those spirits that call into you, because some of them actually get offended. There are certain spirits that if you were to even light incense, some of them don't like fire. Like, you know, some of them like to be addressed a certain way. Like, a lot of them don't like to be told what to do. Like, there's just a certain protocol. And the laws don't play and the orishas don't play, and they could really help you, but they could really mess you up. And our spirits possess people sometimes. That may scare somebody. So I'm just saying, like, there's just certain ways. I'm still learning, you know. I'm a baby still. I'm still learning every single day. But I just feel like this conversation should be had respectfully. And I feel that all sides of the arguments should be listened to. And hopefully one day we could come to a place of sitting down with each other and listening and exchanging ideas and things like that. I do get offended by cultural appropriation in its true essence. I don't feel like that you have the right to take somebody's culture and make money off of it. I don't feel you have the right, if you're not initiated into a tradition, to write books about it, make millions of dollars, while the people that actually originated the religion are still living in poverty, are still living in war, are still living very badly. I don't believe you have the right to take somebody's culture. If we live in a country where you can get shot simply for the color of your skin, I'm just saying. So, but at the same time, if you do your research and you do it in a respectful way, I don't have a problem with you, because I'm not going to sit here and police the world. I'm just not going to sit here and police the world. So there is a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. If you're doing it in a respectful way and you're like, I'm honoring, I'm learning, I'm doing this, I don't see a problem with it. So, love, light, and blessings. Hopefully this video, like the whole audience isn't unsubscribed, but I had to talk about this. And I didn't want to do it from a place of anger. I wanted to do it in a place of love. So, love you. Bye.